Oh, welcome. Another edition of Steve's Auto Care. Let's take shit apart. Anyway, what we're doing is intake manifold gasket because the coolant jackets are leaking, and also the reason why I found out that the coolant jackets are leaking is this had a stalling problem, and it turns out the stalling problem was caused by a faulty cylinder head temperature sensor. Now, if we look at the manifold, the intake manifold here, you look right there, that is a engine coolant temperature sensor that's in a coolant jacket that's part of the manifold. However, that's not the one that the engine uses for cylinder temperature or coolant temperature. The one that the computer uses, as we walk around here, is... oh crap, I gotta get you a light. Just a sec. Where's my light? Here's my light. There. Is right there. Come on, light. Hold up. It's right here. That is the coolant, or excuse me, cylinder head temperature sensor. Now, what it was doing on this car was telling the car when it was 30 degrees that it was 9 degrees. And then as the coolant would get up to temp, the temperature of the sensor would not go up as well. So, and the way I was able to verify it, and you can see it, is Ford was nice enough to give us a pigtail for that because the manifold sits over it. And so this is the pigtail for that sensor, and if you look here, I have aluminum foil stuffed in that connector, and that's to short it out. Now here's what I found was interesting, that even though the intake temperature sensor was reading 59 degrees on it after the engine had warmed up, the computer still believed that that sensor was good, and therefore was flooding the engine out, and when you'd put it in gear it would stall. So to verify my thinking that this was an actual bad sensor, I shorted it out, which tripped the computer and set the check engine light. And when it does that, it ignores that sensor and takes the temperature reading off the intake air temperature. And so when I was able to do that, or when I shorted that out and the check engine light came on, the computer ignored the sensor, I was able to put it in gear and the engine stayed running. So that was the initial complaint, was the car would stall when you put it in gear. And so when I was checking that sensor out, I saw that these coolant jackets, way over there, that one, are leaking coolant. And now that I got the manifold off, I'll show you exactly where they were leaking. If you look right here, see that? That one's broke. And same thing on this side. That one's broke too. The back ones, well, it looks like the back one started leaking too. Look at that right there. And how about this side? Yeah, a little bit. It was starting to go. So this was going to fail on front and rear. So that's what we're doing now. Another thing, if you happen to get this type of car, which is the same as the Crown Victoria. This is a 2002 Lincoln Towncar, the Crown Vic, 4.6 liter, same setup. I had to take off two things that come up from the back of the motor up and sits above the manifold. So you can't get the manifold off without removing these two things. First is this bracket here, which bolts way back there on the back side, and then it comes up over, and there's a big bolt that goes through the bracket and the manifold into the block. Okay, so that had to come off. And the Egr tube also, it connects to the manifold down on here, comes up through the back side and goes over there. Now let me show you this tube here to give you an idea how to take it off. So this tube, as you can imagine, well, let me just, for demonstration purposes, this tube pretty much sits like this. and the manifold, the exhaust manifold, is down there. Okay, well, it's actually like, think about right there. So you got to take this off. And the way I did it, because it was rusted and I couldn't get the bolts off, air chisel. Okay, I kid you not, I used this thing to get this nut off. And if you're careful, you'll see right there, right on the edge of the hex, and the vibrations will just knock it loose. I sprayed it down with penetrating oil, and even with the it's an inch and I believe an inch and a 16th wrench, I couldn't get enough leverage in the tight compartment, so to get that off. Now the book says to remove the left-hand catalytic converter assembly, and I didn't want to deal with that, so I pulled the inner fender out. And again, where's my light so I can show you? There's where the Egr tube connects to the manifold. So that's how I got it off. Is I came right through the inner fender with the long chisel. I know that not everybody's going to have that, but that's what I used. And the tool here is fairly cheap. It's only like 20 bucks. The gun, on the other hand, the impact hammer, that's probably close to 200, 150 to 200, depending where you get it from. This is a big one. They have a smaller one that's a little cheaper. You might be able to get it done with that. Did not have to remove the belt, the alternator. I was able to work around that, although, you know, it doesn't take much to get it out of the way, but I did disconnect the battery and the electrical connector and the power feed as well. To make it easier to get the bracket on this side, this big ass bracket, I did take off the main looms, disconnected all the main harnesses, and that allowed me to a little bit more flexibility on the cable harness to get that out. So there we are. This was a job that, while I was doing it, starting it out, and realized I was gonna have to work on the back of the motor, I didn't think that I would be able to get it done today. Right now it's 1 o'clock. So, and I started at 10. Took an hour lunch at noon, and so here we are. So 2 hours to get to this point, basically. Well, I guess that's 3. No, it's 2 to 12, and then lunch. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, this is Steve's Auto Care. We are in Tacoma, Washington, and we're making it happen. All right, thanks for watching. See y'all later.